Hey, it's Dr. Schmidt. So I want to go over this Data Quality Act. It was passed in 2001, and it's a tool that we can use to force the USDA to put out good information regarding nutrition. So let me give you kind of a background on this, and all the links I'll put below. So this is the Wikipedia page about the Data Quality Act, and it's decent, and there's some links below it. The next one I want to show you is this website. It's about the history of the Data Quality Act. You can read through it if you're interested in it. And the next one is, this is a article that says the Data Quality Act is judiciously reviewable in the DC Circuit, meaning you could take someone to court with this Data Quality Act. And it's still kind of new, and it's not super well known, and it's not well used, I don't think, to try to change the way the government's talking about information. The point is that the government is supposed to give good information, and not all government agencies have to. But let's go back to this. So here's this website called the Center for Regulatory Effectiveness, and they are regulating the regulators in the federal government. And so here's one particular link on their website where they go over the history that they have using the Data Quality Act to control the government. So here you can click on the different years. Here's 2011. Here's all the articles and all the things that they've done. So the CRE, Center for Regulatory Effectiveness, here's their mission statement. The second paragraph says it's a nationally acclaimed regulatory watchdog. It's founded and managed by former regulatory officials. It says, to this end, CRE ensures that regulators comply with the good government laws which regulate the regulators. Okay, so you have people in the FDA, EPA, USDA. They're not elected, they're appointed, or they're just hired, and they can go sort of off the rails and do things that don't benefit the rest of America. And we have to keep them under control. So let me show you this. This is an example of the CRE using a letter to one agency, actually the EPA. So one person who received this letter is in the USDA, Department of Agriculture, and here's the other person in the USDA. So the people at the CRE, this is what they're saying. It's a request for joint development of standard operating procedures if epidemiological data is used in pesticide assessment and registration. So the EPA has been using toxicological studies to regulate pesticides, etc. And they used, in this case, an epidemiological study. Now, if you've seen this video before here, then you know that most epidemiological studies need to be thrown away. I mean, in nutrition, 90% of the studies are epidemiological, and they're worthless. You have to do a controlled trial. So here's this paragraph. The U.S. EPA has rarely used epidemiological data to assess and register pesticides under the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. The Department of Agriculture correctly explained to the EPA that, quote, if epidemiological studies are to form the basis of the Food Quality and Protection Act factor, a new standard operating procedure is needed because epidemiological studies are not very good. They kind of suck. And so if you're going to use them, you have to control that. You got to have controls in place so that it doesn't go out of control. So this is the best and perhaps only way to ensure that pesticide epidemiological data comply with the Data Quality Act and with related EPA quality requirements. Prudent use of the DQA is a proven way to produce scientifically sound conclusions. The USDA has developed substantial expertise and knowledge in this area. The department is an active proponent of epidemiological standard operating procedures. Now, the USDA, in this paragraph, we're talking about foodborne illnesses, we're talking about agricultural practices, agricultural chemicals, farming, but they're not applying standard operating procedures in the USDA related to the food pyramid or myplate, whatever you want to call it. Their food recommendations are not based on sound scientific studies. Okay, now the Center for Regulatory Effectiveness is saying that here are some of the parameters if you're going to use epidemiological studies. They have to meet some of these or all of these qualifications. So validation of all methods, replication, reproducibility of results, biological plausibility. Now in epidemiological studies, you'll see things like, for example, if you eat 5 walnuts a day, you're going to live 15 years longer. That is not biologically plausible. Another example would be every time you eat a piece of bacon, it's like smoking a cigarette. Not biologically plausible. Those two statements come from epidemiological studies. Here's consistency with animal data. So there could be a good experiment on mice, and there's got to be some sort of consistency in human studies too. Okay, whereas epidemiological studies, they can go like way overboard, and there's no consistency with an animal study. Okay, adequate statistical power. I'm going to get into this a little bit deeper. And then ability to generate a dose response. No reliance on only one study. Okay, the last thing I want to go over on this form is from the EPA. It's saying that, well, as was alluded to earlier, the EPA's use of human epidemiological data in the absence of toxicological data for quantitative risk assessment is precedent setting. They've never used epidemiological studies. They've relied on toxicology studies. That totally makes sense. The EPA has relied on the Columbia study, which is a single, unreplicated epidemiology study that is not designed for quantitative risk assessment. So there's that. So they're saying, how about if the EPA and USDA come together, and the USDA will teach the EPA how to control these epidemiological studies. Now the UK has done this, and here we have A through F. These are questions to answer related to epidemiological data and regulatory risk assessment. I'm going to focus on C. Was the study designed to have sufficient power to detect the effects of interest? Okay, let's talk about power. How powerful is a study? How powerful can it be? So I talked about this in another video. Here's this video. And power is actually mathematical in studies. And it says various combinations of power are 1 minus beta right here. So here's 1 minus beta where my arrow is. That's power. And there's a whole bunch of different studies right here. And they're ranked. And the best ones are at the top and the weakest ones are at the bottom. And the power here, there's 4 of these types of studies that are worth looking at for power. Their rating is 0.8 or higher. We have 0.95 here. The other ones are all at 0.2. So you can't use those studies to say anything clinically relevant or to say something is toxic. It's got to be 0.8 or higher in this first column. So let's look at these 4 studies that have power. And we're going to look at this next column, which is R. R stands for ratio of true to not true relationships. So the first number is true, the second number is not true. This first kind of study is a 1-to-1 relationship of truth to not truth, 1-to-1. It's really good. The next one down is 2-to-1. That's even better. And then the third one down is 1-to-3. That's pretty good. And then this other one that has power to it, the truth ratio is 1 in 10. So the chances of getting something truthful is 1 in 10, whereas these other ones are 1 in 1, 1 in 3, or 2-to-1. So these studies here are they're randomized controlled trials. That's what's important, okay? But if you're going to use an epidemiological study, there's only this one kind right here, and it's actually pretty lame because the truth ratio is 1 in 10. 1 chance of truth versus 10 chances of non-truth. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I'll put the link below. And it's the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation. They're actually responding to requests related to the Data Quality Act. And there's a whole bunch of them, and you can flip through and you can read it. And there's different people, individuals or groups. There's some corporate interests here, but regardless, you can send an email and you can talk about a request for correction. So the Health and Human Services department is saying something incorrect related to fluoride, or to a link with gonorrhea, or here's a type of antibiotic. And these people are saying, look, you're saying something that's not right. And so you can click on this, and then the Department of Health and Human Services will give you a response. You can give them a request for reconsideration, and they can give you a response to that. So that's just some samples. And now here we have the United States Department of Agriculture Center for Nutrition Policy and Promotion. This Center for Nutrition Policy and Promotion, they are not using good studies. These are the people that are making the MyPlate recommendations that change next year in 2020. And there's a group of policymakers, I think 12 to 15 people, and they're appointed, and we need better scientists on this panel. And when they get on the panel, they got to use randomized control trials, not epidemiological studies. And you can help with this person here. There's this information quality department, and the woman's name is Colette Ryhane, and she's probably a really nice person. I've never met her. I don't know. And she's sitting in room 1034 at 3101 Park Center Drive in Alexandria, Virginia. There's her phone number, there's her fax, there's her email. So if you think that the USDA is saying something incorrect, maybe that low-fat diets are good, or maybe bread is, 6 to 11 servings of bread a day is good. If you think that's not right, and you have science to back it up, the randomized control trials, the good science, you can state your request for the USDA to correct their information as per the information quality guidelines set forth from the Data Quality Act. Include your name, mailing address, fax, whatever, and you can follow these procedures right here, and you submit that to the USDA. And that could help us change the guidelines. Now, there's one group of people, Nutrition Coalition, run by Nina Teicholz. Her book is Big Fat Surprise, and here's her website. I'll put the link below. And you can see various, there's good data in here, and what she's up to, and what's been done in the past. And let me kind of blow this up right here. And this says right here that the dietary guidelines are still a one-size-fits-all diet. It's very high in carbohydrates. And the American diet in 1965, look at that, it was low in carbohydrates. It was at 39% carbs. And that's when people were very, very much healthier with a low-carb diet, and that's what we want to go for, because now we're eating high carbs, lower fat, 32% now versus 45% then, and then the proteins are basically kind of the same. So we've increased the carbs, lower the fat, and now we're this sick. We got to go back to the way it was in 1965 before the vegetarians got a hold of the USDA dietary recommendations. All right, so if you like this information, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and here's how you can be an activist for the benefit of the country. Whatever happens in the U.S. spills over to Australia, South America, South Africa, and Europe. And everybody's getting overweight, including India and China too, because of bad food, high carb, bad seed oils, vegetable oils, and it all really starts in the U.S. with the USDA, and this we can change next year. All right, so have fun with that.